morning to you, our viewers, both locally and abroad, and welcome to what promises to be an exciting 7-episode Digicel Business Masterclass series, where we will showcase and feature and interview some of Jamaica's top businessmen and women. I'm your host, Terri-Karelle, and it is a pleasure to be here with you. We just want to take the opportunity to thank you for visiting digicelbusiness.com and registering for free. And if you find value in it, we encourage you to share the link with your friends, your family, your inner circle, your co-workers, so that they can benefit as well. Now, we want you to be a part of the conversation, so we also invite you to submit your questions to the online chat, or you can use your social media platforms, but just make sure that you use the hashtags, hashtag Digicel Masterclass, hashtag Digicel Business. And we just want to remind you as well that your social media accounts must be open, they have to be public in order for us to see them. Now, you must be asking, so what is this masterclass? Why masters? Well, we are looking to interview the persons who are considered to be the masters of their fields, the masters in their industries. These are the persons who are top of class. And so to kick off this exclusive Digicel Masterclass series, we found a Jamaican, but not just any Jamaican, someone who has reached the highest echelons of corporate world and beyond. Who is he? I would like to introduce you to Richard Pandohie, a passionate, hardworking, accomplished Jamaican man who is known in all of the spaces as a very transformational and visionary leader. But I think the thing he's most proud of is the fact that he's always giving back. He uses his position, his platform, always to give back to Jamaica. Now, in case you're wondering, so, who is he and what does he do? He's currently the CEO of the Seprod group, as well as the president of the JMEA. And before all of this, he also held prestigious roles, executive positions at British American Tobacco. He was the CEO of Carreras Group, managing director of IGL, head of Coca-Cola Jamaica Limited, head of operations at the Caribbean and Central America for Kraft. I cannot wait to have this discussion with you. Welcome to the series. You look nervous.
Thank you, Terry. No, you see, I just feel like I should leave now.
No.
I can only go downhill from here.
Welcome. Now, let me just make it absolutely clear that the first person who is a guest speaker or guest interviewee normally sets the tone and the precedence for the rest of the series. No pressure at all.
Well, Jean Laurichin done tweet this morning, to look on this. I was like, okay, no pressure, Jean, no pressure.
Really, no, welcome, and thank you for taking the time out. Now, before we dive into the questions, we have a lot of persons, SMEs, we have entrepreneurs, young businessmen and women at different phases and stages of their businesses, right? So we're gonna jump into the questions, but before that, just this morning, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information launched their one laptop, one tablet per child initiative.
Right.
And I had the pleasure of hosting. Now, you're someone who has always given back, and Seprod Foundation was one of the biggest contributors there in the room. And for persons who are not aware, what it is that we are trying to furnish and provide a laptop or tablet to about 100,000 children who are not on path,
right,
but who are, in fact, vulnerable. So from where you sit, and of course Seprod Foundation being a huge contributor, from where you sit, how important is it to have a corporate social arm as a business person?
Well, first of all, I mean, with great responsibility, you have to deliver. People expect us that if we're doing well, if you're benefiting from the partnership in society, part of what you need to is to give back.
Absolutely.
And CSR can be seen as a tool to enhance your brand, enhance your corporate image. But honestly, at Seprod, we just see that the right thing to do. I mean, for us, it's really about making sure Jamaica progresses. And the pandemic has revealed some structural inequity. We have seen a widening gap in the education between the haves and the have-nots. And so if we don't step in now as corporate citizens and do what we have to do, we're going to create a pipeline of just grief going down the road. So it's really, the CSR is really important, yes, but we see it as much more than that. We see ourselves as part of the fabric of Jamaica, and our responsibility goes beyond our brand at this point.
Absolutely, and we thank you so very much, because we always want to remind our business people, those who are building their brands, that it isn't necessarily a publicity thing, but it is in fact doing the right thing. We're going for $4.5 billion, and we're happy that there are companies like Seprod Foundation who are at the helm and trying to encourage other persons to do it as well. So now you are in the hot seat. I hope everyone got their notepads, they got their pens, and they're ready to take notes, because the masterclass is now in session. So in the current business climate, while businesses are reducing their expenses, they're shrinking in size, they're cutting back, you still manage to pivot your business and increase net profit while other companies were losing. How important is diversification, and how would you encourage businesses to diversify, especially businesses that are not within the manufacturing industry?
Right, so that's 3 questions in one. So first of all, we have been having a tremendous year, the Seprod Group, turning in record profits, etc. But it wasn't really because of what we're doing now in this period. It's more the result of a journey that we undertook 4 years ago. I mean, we're 4 to 5 years ago. We set out with a clear vision. We knew how we were going to get there, and we executed like hell. And we have had some luck along the way. I mean, projects that we had planned to execute in 2022 were brought up last year, not knowing there was a pandemic. So I mean, we had a little bit of luck there. And of course, we're very diversified. Diversification is extremely important. And people diversify for a number of reasons. They diversify to manage their risk, or they can diversify to generate growth. I mean, we diversify to generate growth. And by the way, diversification refers not only to the products or the service, but also to where you sell your products, where you engage people.
Correct.
Diversification means a lot of things. So diversification is definitely something that you want to do when you look at your managing growth or managing your risk. And it goes beyond a manufacturing space. It applies to anybody. In the service industry, I've seen some wonderful examples of diversification. I mean, I think of the entertainment industry.
Correct.
I mean, they bring in your live dance to your room now, right? Or you saw the versus thing. I mean, it's created tweaking the models. And by the way, diversification in this pandemic sometimes mean you don't make the money, but they keep your brand alive and current.
And relevant.
Right. So it is very important, because we'll get out of this. And you want to make sure your brand is still relevant to capitalize when you come out of this. So the service, well, I've seen people in the design field, I mean, expand their reach now using e-commerce to new markets outside Jamaica.
Yes.
So the pandemic has forced us to become creative, become innovative, and become more hungry.
That is true.
And so in the survival mode, it has helped. It has helped a lot.
Now, let me ask you a question, just as a follow-up. You were able to say that there were some projects that you might have projected for 2022, and for whatever reason, you said maybe it was luck, maybe it was vision, maybe it was a change or a trajectory change, and you were able to do it earlier. How do businesses prepare for uncertainty? And is it something that we can actually prepare for?
Well, uncertainty is a part of business, a part of life. So I mean, when you're developing your strategy and your tactics to get there, you have to be always factor what are the what ifs, what could happen, and you have multiple scenarios. So we do that. So at this point in time, actually, at Seprod, I'm going through my strategic process for the next 3 years, and I was at one facility today, and you go through all the scenarios. What could happen? What if this happened? What if that happened? And you constantly, it's an iterative process. So you're looking at the environment, and as things change, you put it back, and you see how it affects it and how it affects it. So uncertainty is a part of life, and you have to be planning for the scenarios, because as an entrepreneur, you don't have the space or the time to sit down. You have to know exactly, these are my options, this is what I'm going to pick if this happens. This is what I'm going to pick if that happens.
And it's not fixed either. The market is not fixed. Even your, I think even your demographics, sometimes even your clients and customers change.
Listen, the biggest risk in the uncertainty, the biggest risk factor is actually your consumers, your customers. Shifting taste, shifting behavior, it can turn your brand from being relevant to irrelevant very quickly. So those, especially customers, the economic environment can change dramatically on you. I mean, last year this time Jamaica was moving.
We're booming.
We're booming. We're like best thing around, top of the world, and just like that, the environment changed. So I mean, you can't plan for a one in 100 years pandemic necessarily.
Right.
But things are happening all the time.
And how important is it to have that flexibility and that flexible mindset? We've seen a lot of businesses analyze a pain point. They've always said that the businesses that do very well are the ones that look at the market, they look at the consumers, they find a problem or a pain point, and they become the solution. But how important is it for them to also have a a flexible mindset in order to adapt and change with uncertainties?
For successful entrepreneurs, for successful business, for successful people, adaptability is key. I mean, they say, the things that survive are not the strongest or the fittest, but the most adaptable, right? So you have to be able to flex and to change with it. I mean, having a fixed approach and saying, this is how we're going to do things, going to lead to failure. Because it changes, and sometimes you have to turn left to go right. And so, entrepreneurs, especially SMEs, you have to be adaptable and flexible and looking for different ways to do things. And I mean, it's you have to look for what you don't expect. And I mean, I can give an example. I was very impressed with King Alarm during the pandemic. A security company providing security, but then offer a service to fill prescription for their elderly, for their senior customers. They pivoted. They offered a service and a value proposition that work. So you always have to be looking, what are the value proposition I can bring to my brand or to my product to make it interesting for my people to stay with me. Correct. Again, everything not necessarily bringing in revenue at the time, but it enhances your brand. And the brand equity is what drives your profitability, ability to take profit going forward.
And it allows you to expand into spaces. I think one of the things we have seen are entrepreneurs who have not necessarily looked at the other areas or even broken down their demographics. So they treat everyone very general, and they don't really take the time to know who their customers are. They have a product, they have a good, they have a service, and that is it. And I think what King Alarm was able to do, they identified that particular problem because they had a better understanding of who are my customers and how can I help them further.
And helping those particular customers, they resonated well with other customers. Because people like to see people doing good things. They like to see it out there. You talk about CSR and etc. People want people to do good. And I think that is something that I encourage entrepreneurs and businesses to keep just stretch boundaries. Look beyond what you this is my brand and my focus and my thing. What else can I do to bring value to what I'm doing?
Of course. What is your biggest lesson? You have held prestigious roles across different companies, very large brands, different industries. Biggest lesson?
Execution.
Really?
Yeah.
Expound.
I mean, people have great ideas. Many people have great ideas. Sit with them and you go somewhere to tell you about the ideas, amazing ideas. And, they probably even know how they'd want to get there. But always, the issue that we have is that people don't execute well. Execution becomes a competitive advantage in our environment because people keep forgetting. It takes a lot of sweat equity. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of understanding your environment, understanding your customer, your consumer. But execution is that makes a difference.
That is where we tend to fall flat.
Big time.
So it's good to have the ideas, but unless you can execute it and to create a great brand experience, and that is no matter what industry or field you may be in, try to execute at a very high level. At a very high level and keep focused doing that. But I mean, it's that is if I had to pick one thing in Jamaica or beyond, especially in Jamaica, that is, I think, that's something that we need to get right. Okay, I hear you. As the chairman of JMEA, what advice would you give to businesses to be better equipped to tap into the diaspora, the marketplace, the global marketplace? So the diaspora, I mean, that's very interesting. I mean, so we're talking about the Jamaican diaspora, I assume. And I think a lot of time we're so focused on the Jamaican diaspora that we leave out the picture of the Caribbean diaspora, the Hispanic diaspora. I mean, so it's estimated that there are probably, 1.5, 2 million Jamaicans. Let's take the US. Right. There's probably another 3 million Caribbean people, and there's 55 million Hispanics. I think our products are sometimes too narrowed for just the Jamaican public, and we have great products here that people want elsewhere. And that's regardless of what their race, ethnicity. Exactly. Might be. So I think that's something that I think entrepreneurs need to look. We're more than Jamaica. We are a global brand. Jamaica is a global brand. True. People want our stuff. So let's get out to the bigger picture. A smaller percentage of 55, 60 million population is better than chasing only say 1.5, 2 million. Sounds much better. That's one thing. And for diaspora again, supply. When I go to the UK or wherever you meet with the diaspora business people there, they complain. A sample thing on our day with man. A sample business. You give us something, you excite us, and then when we put in the order, we can't get it. So I think that when you're going to excite customers and consumers, make sure your supply chain is there to fulfill it, because the reputational damage you suffer when you don't do that is very hard to recover from. I just had this conversation with a friend of mine, and we said sometimes some brands never recover. Sometimes they have to literally change their name, change their branding in order to do it. But it goes back to what you said about execution. Having the idea, having the swatches or the samples, but then when the moment comes that you are to deliver or to execute, that is what happens.
Right. So those things for the diaspora comes to mind. And the other thing for diaspora, I would say, is when you talk to them, it's just about we have to be making sure that we understand the compliance of the market, regulatory compliance. That's also a major failing. And it's very difficult. I have so much sympathy for smaller businesses because it takes a lot of effort. And many of the larger companies have, they have a whole compliance department to understand the regulation.
Compliance, legal, everything.
Because the regulatory framework is a barrier to entry, right? And it's used by countries. And this is some place I think that Jampro could do a fantastic job for small, because you don't have the time as an entrepreneur to put in that resource and all that. So you want to go somewhere and say, I want to export to Canada.
Correct.
What labeling standards? So you need to get that. That needs to be done. And a lot of companies, fall on that part. Even large companies. I mean, sometimes we're exporting something and customs in USA suddenly sees it and you're like, yo, I must do this for like 30 years. What? No.
How come now? Why you can't
exactly.
now?
So I mean, those are three things I'd concentrate on. And I think that the last one, the regulatory thing, and just, your brand, registering your brands. I mean, people are out there stealing brands left, right, and center. And that is something in Jamaica that we should do better. And there's something called the Madrid Protocol that's been in place for 7 years.
Say that again?
The Madrid Protocol. Now, what this means that you, as a brand owner, can register in one place and your brand is protected everywhere. Believe it or not, our own Jamaicans are the ones preventing us from enforcing that legislation.
No way.
Same way, sir. And I mean, listen, I'm going to ball out about this till somebody change it, because it's unbelievable to me that companies have to be spending so much money registering in so much different countries.
Correct.
When there's a global legislation allowing you to go to one place, register, and you protect your brands. So Jamaican small businesses, a lot of them are being exploited abroad. People see a product and then get somebody else make it, and it's called Jamaican made or
Correct.
Jamaican this or something like that.
Correct.
And you, the person who developed the brand, you, the person who invested so much in it, don't benefit.
Don't just hold that point. We just want to remind you, if you are listening, if you have any questions, any concerns, maybe you need any clarifications, please go ahead and drop your questions in the online chat, and you can use your social media platforms using the hashtags Digicel Masterclass and hashtag Digicel Business. We're going back to this. Why isn't this commonplace? Is it our responsibility as the entrepreneur to research more or to dig more, or is it that the resources are not readily available, that we need more awareness and education in the space?
Well, first of all, we have to define as a country how we say entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurial activities have to be the growth engine of our economy, meaning that the economic prosperity of our country has to be driven by the amount of small businesses that are going to scale up and going to be successful. If we truly believe that, and that's the way it has to be, you see it in India, USA, whatever,
Correct.
then we have to create an environment that's conducive for entrepreneurs to want to go into the space and to be successful.
And to thrive.
Remember, it's a high-risk business, and there's a high probability of failure. So if we determine that we need X amount of small business to be successful, the pipeline have to have multiples of that. And for the pipeline to have multiples of that, we have to create the environment. It cannot be that it makes things onerous for people when they're starting up. You're killing them before they start. I think the government has made some good moves. Eliminating the minimum business tax was a good move.
Correct. We saw, I think even companies, Jamaica had said that they saw, over 100% increase in registration of businesses as soon as that came out.
Exactly. We need to give, the entrepreneurs don't have the time nor the space to do all the research. They need to be able to have a place where they can go and get the data. And the one thing that kills business in Jamaica is a lack of data. We just don't have, we just don't have data. And I mean, if you don't have data, you're swimming against the tide.
Disadvantage.
Yeah. So we as a country need to create the repository for you to go and say, okay, I want to go into XY business. And you go there and you get all the data for it. And you allow it. I mean, doing business in Jamaica is just too hard.
It's hard. And I've heard so many people say this. And I've heard that is one of the reasons why we look at the statistics, the fact that some businesses, even though they have a great model, great idea, great product, cannot get past even their first year because it's just too hard.
And I mean, you have to be a schizophrenic to be an entrepreneur, because you have to be the leader, you have to be the manager, you have to be the research person, you have to be. The less of those you have to do, there's a better chance that you'll be able to concentrate on the
Bigger
execution and getting the thing done.
Bigger picture.
So I am, I just believe that so much more could be done. And, there's a responsibility on the private sector part for the larger companies. I believe that, companies should allocate a certain percentage of their business to entrepreneurs, especially the startup. Because, and you're not being altruistic, you're just being practical. The ship raise when the tide raise, right? The more successful businesses are, the more people they'll employ, they'll have more disposable income, they'll buy your product, right? So I think
the economy thrives. Everybody benefits. Win-win.
And the problem that we have in our society is that we think it's a zero-sum game. We think that if you win, I lose.
Correct.
We can win. And
we both can benefit.
We both can benefit to a point that's even better than the individual benefit. I think we need to get that attitude. So, and I also believe that something we should push for, and Jamie, we're looking at it, is that if the larger companies could allocate certain amount of hours, because one of the major failing of entrepreneurs is a lack of access to competent finance people. So they don't have so they can't.
They're not equipped.
Yeah, so they can't access the loans or the financial support because they don't have their balance sheet and their P&L and then whatever.
Not done well.
So, I think if we allocate X amount of hours per week, a company could pick three entrepreneurs and say, we're going to allocate our finance people for X amount of hours to help you get this there, to help get.
How much better it would be.
How much better it would be. Because we have the resources. We have them there anyway. And a lot of the employees that we have want to do good. People want people to thrive, especially in this time where so much people are being affected. 200,000 Jamaicans are out of job today that were in a job last year this time.
Correct.
What they're going to do. There's nobody to employ, and we're going to look for entrepreneurial activity to grow. So I think that there's a responsibility on the government side and on private sector side. I mean, it's a collective responsibility.
Well, I was just about to say that I think, and we've been hearing it more often, instead of it being looked at as a competition, we have to realize that the pie is in fact very big and that we can stand to gain more by simple collaboration. And it doesn't mean giving away your secret sauce. Right. It doesn't mean by giving a business, the blueprint to what it is you do. But as you rightfully said, looking at the areas where they are more likely to be disadvantaged.
Right.
And to use the resources that you have to say, all right, I see you, good model. If you thrive, then this could be huge for not only your business, not just your community, but Jamaica at large. And I think that is probably the mindset that you're seeing, that we need to also shift.
We need to shift that completely. And the entrepreneurs themselves also need to create their own ecosystem. Go to a co-working space hub or whatever, meet other entrepreneurs, create an ecosystem where you're sharing information. Sharing and collaborating is good.
It is.
I mean, and going back to private sector, large companies, large companies working with large companies is not going to bring growth to this country. That's the reality. We have to work with the smaller companies, and that's how we thrive. I mean, it's our latest collaboration at Seprod. We launched a cassava flour, and I mean, we could have gone with a large company. We're working with an entrepreneur.
Yes.
We have locked him in and said, listen, this is our volume going for him. You don't have to think about that no more.
Wow.
In turn, he goes to the farmers, and he has locked them into things. So that our whole chain, supply chain is being created for something, because we can bring our skill to the table in export. We can spend money on the export. We can get it in the markets, and they can produce efficiently.
But again, it goes back to the fact that if you decide that you are going to, and again, it's both sides, right? Both parties, both entities. Because if a business decides to take the risk to go with a small business or a medium-sized business, again, it goes back to what you said, and I think it's very important. You must be able to deliver. You must be able to deliver. If you get that opportunity, please understand that if you deliver well, opportunities open even further and even beyond the business that has taken.
As long as all parties are fair, because one thing I learned from one of my jobs, I've had many jobs, right? I mean, I say jobs as projects. I mean, I've never looked for a career. I just say jobs as projects. One thing you learn is that you want the entire chain to be financially healthy. I mean, many times, if I'm taking something from you, I mustn't try to extract every cent out of you. I must leave you in a position where you're financially healthy.
Correct.
Because then it helps, and I think that's something that we need to develop in the country where...
Not to milk someone dry, and it's not your problem.
Exactly.
It's not my problem.
I was so distressed when I started the pandemic, when I saw so many small chicken farmers, and they complain, their biggest complaint when people take the chicken and they haven't paid them. They can't.
Credit.
And I mean, people taking advantage of people that way. And I'm just saying, let us financials. I mean, everybody can live, and everybody can prosper, but we have to be fair. Yeah.
You just mentioned that you've had, different jobs that you've looked at as projects. What is the best advice that you've ever received, whether it was from a formal mentor or not? What's the best whether it is personal advice or business advice that you can share with our SMEs, our entrepreneurs, or young professionals?
So
Best advice.
So I'm ashamed to tell you the best advice I ever got, I didn't follow.
What?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in my 20s, an entrepreneur in Montego Bay, I was living in Montego Bay and working, and he said to me, listen, you have a whole heap of potential in my youth. Start your thing. You know, we'll back you on it, start it. And he said, even if you can't just start it. And I didn't. And I mean, you know, to this day, when I see him, I have to hide because he tells me that I'm ashamed of you.
Oh no, you're disappointed.
You're such a disappointment. So the best advice was that invest in yourself, better yourself, do something, you know. I mean, it don't mean that you have to be one or the other, or the opportunity to do both. But I mean, I think in retrospect, that was the best advice I got, and I didn't follow it.
And you didn't follow it?
No.
No, the follow-up question naturally, for anybody watching, would be, why? Was it fair? Was it, you know, a lack of confidence in terms of where you were at that particular stage, which is usually a question that a lot of entrepreneurs have. Some people are in 9-to-5s right now. They do very well. They're assets for other companies. And when you say, hey, you know, you should shove out, they kind of go, oh, I don't know. Yeah. What was yours, if you can remember?
No, I can't remember. I mean, age setting in, but I can't still remember. You know, when I look back, I mean, the fact is that, so I didn't have the typical corporate thing of mentors and those things. So if you ask me about who my mentor was and what, I didn't have that really, right? I had a close friend, I mean, that one of my boss, Patrick Smith, who gave me a lot of freedom. But, you know, everything was kind of pull up your own bootstrap, whatever. I think and as a first child in the family, you had responsibilities, right?
Yes.
So people like me, they're growing up here, told me your parents' pension.
And sadly, that's still something that's a part of our culture.
Right. So it reduces your risk averseness. I mean, it's you know. So
understood.
So
safety and security.
Safety and security. I mean, I mean, but in the end, if I were to ask myself, maybe I just didn't have the confidence to believe I could have executed at that level because I never have the network, I never have this. But you know, when I look at the people that I admire the most, they're so entrepreneurial in what they do. And I believe I'm an entrepreneur. I believe I run a business like an entrepreneur. And that, I mean, would have had the asset, would have been able to do very well. But
Richard, is it too late?
Never too late.
Is it too late for you to say, all right, you know what, I can do this thing?
Never too
late. So
late.
that he no longer tells you that you're a disappointment?
It's never too late, but you know, you have different parts along your journey. You know, I came back to Jamaica 5 years ago, the family, and one thing you want is a legacy, right? I believe in legacy. I think you want to leave something that people remember you by and what you did. I believe that, I mean, you know, Seprod was a major project to turn around and to move to the next level.
Yes.
I believe that in the platform that I've been honored to give, like at the JMA, you interact and interface with so many small businesses, and you're able to help. And so on a daily basis, I am helping and contributing. I take a great deal of satisfaction from that.
Awesome.
So I mean, it's, you know, it's just a different part of the journey, and you know, I encourage. I have 4 boys, and I encourage. Yeah, I read the condom instruction. But I encourage them, like you know, think big, think entrepreneurial. You don't have the fear that I would have had about whatever. Expand and go out there, and I mean that's. Maybe I live vicariously through them.
And that's fine. And that is legacy. That is legacy.
Exactly.
Sometimes we can't always be everything, but we can set the stage for the generations to come. So you have held CEO position, executive positions, head, and with those positions come, you know, difficult decisions. Adversity, challenges, difficult decisions. What has been, if you can mention it, one of your biggest decisions or hardest decisions to make in your career span?
So I'll just preface that by saying that sometimes we're always wondering what we should do, but we'll always have to ask the question, what should we not be doing? Also, very important.
Very important.
I mean, today when I was with my team, one of the business unit team, and they were telling what they wanted, I said, what are we not going to do? That's a harder question to answer. And one of the hardest decisions I've had to make was to exit the sugar manufacturing business with Seprod. I mean, you know, several hundred people were affected. And it was particularly close because I spent a lot of time in St. Thomas. My grandmother is buried there, everything.
Yeah.
And, but it was the right decision. I mean, you know, it was the right decision for the company. It was the right decision to move forward. But it was a very tough decision. And every time, I'll tell you this though, every time you have to make a decision that impact people's lives, it bothers me.
Yeah.
Because I don't see the person, I see their families behind them. I mean, they said that for every person in Jamaica, there are 6 dependents.
Correct.
So it's very difficult, and I mean, coming from, you know, a background, it's a working class background. I mean, my father, I mean, remember, was made redundant from a position, etc. I saw the impact it had on him. And I've always said that I want to bring positivity to people's life. So every time I have to make a tough decision,
and it doesn't get easier. It doesn't matter the field or the industry or even the role or station that you hold. Those tough decisions do not get any easier, as far as I've heard.
No, they don't get any easier. And I mean, you know, it doesn't get any easier. And sometimes you try to figure, you know, you wish you could do everything to make everyone happy. But sometimes you have to look at the bigger picture. And sometimes in creating, making sure the company survive, making sure your business survive. And that's the other thing with entrepreneurs I find. One thing that I find is that sometimes you have the wrong people in position and they take too long to make the changes. And I mean, you know, it's all about your team to execute and get there. You could have the vision, you could have this. If you don't have the people to execute, that's a problem.
Correct.
And many times entrepreneurs, they have the wrong people and the wrong place. Or they have the right people at the wrong time. But whatever it is, you have to know what it is that you need at this point in time to succeed. And if it's not working for you, listen, your business has to survive.
Fail fast, hurry up,
cut
your losses.
Cut your losses and move on. So that was...
I remember, I remember, I think that is probably one of the best advices that Christopher Barnes has ever told me. He said, listen, if you're going to fail, because it comes with taking risks and trying to find out what your opportunities are. If you're going to fail, he said, fail fast. Fail fast, learn from it, make a note of what went wrong, what was good, what you're keeping, what you're not doing, and keep it moving. The longer you wait, and you're expecting different results, but your strategy has not changed, your approach hasn't changed, you're not going to get the same results. So fail fast and keep it moving.
Absolutely. And in my case, I mean, I consider myself to I'm growth-oriented. I want to grow. So I'm not the person you're bringing to cut the size of an organization to profitability. I'm the person you're bringing to grow your organization. And therefore, you know, for every job that has been lost under me, I'm mentally counting every job that I'm bringing back.
Right.
To cover that. I mean, it's almost like a personal obligation now to bring back jobs.
We appreciate
and
that.
to make sure that to cover the people that have been, you know,
have been affected or displaced.
Yeah.
What is it about your approach as Richard Pandohie, as an individual? What has it been about your approach that allows you or has allowed you to be as successful as you have been?
All right. I would say one thing, my ability to focus. There's lots of noise around you all the time. I really can just get away from the noise and focus on what it is that needs to be done to shift the dial. That's an ability that I have. That's very important. I mean, I work hard. I put in the work. I mean, people, you know, no amount of social media posting or etc. can account for the sweat equity you have to put in your business. In fact, to post properly, you have to have content. So you have to work hard. I mean, I spend a lot of time researching. I spend a lot of time talking to people, not by titles, but by people on the ground doing the work. I mean,
who are seeing and feeling and experiencing.
I mean, my best visits and my most important visits are when I go to a small manufacturer or whatever and ask them how they're doing, what they're doing. And a man tell you that, listen, I started out, I mean, Carlton for Carl's, for example. Tell you that him started out selling bag juice to them daughters sleep in the back of the car while I'm driving to Portmore. That's inspirational. That's inspiration. You look what they're doing. You look at the companies out there, people start by putting their backpack on their bags, going store to store, and stuff. That's inspirational. And so those are the people that I try to stay grounded and connected to because it helps to make the decision. And I mean, the other thing is that I'm very focused on my consumers, my customers.
Good.
I mean, they're the ones that you're working to deliver a value proposition to. So you have to stay close to them. And I mean, so those things, and I mean, it's, I'm a mother prayers. I mean,
we can't leave that out.
We
can't leave that out. Do you think, because you have had experience, not just locally, but internationally, do you think that being a Jamaican has given you a little advantage, a little bit of sauce that has helped you in your business life? Because we like to think that being a Jamaican makes us special, you know, but has that been your experience, even in terms of meetings, meeting people? Do they tend to warm up to the idea because you're Jamaican? What have you experienced?
Absolutely. So Jamaica is a global brand. And people think about Usain Bolt or Bob Marley, but Jamaica is people. It's us. When people think of Jamaica, they think of warmth and creativity and whatever.
And a vibe.
And a vibe. So they go in the room, you know, they want to meet you, they want to know you. So being Jamaican has helped me to develop relationships. Very important, again, for business people, entrepreneurs, is about relationship building.
Right.
I mean, you can't do this on your own. You need relationships. So those relationships have been positive. Jamaica
Right.
make it positive, you know?
Good.
You know, them just want to get a friend, so if them come Jamaica, them know somebody to visit.
Or they can get you saying to sign something.
Or something, but, well, I don't have them links like you, Terry. I mean, just, I mean, but the fact is that being Jamaican has opened the doors to many positive relationships.
Good.
And relationships, I mean, no matter what happened, those relationships that you developed 15, 20 years ago are the same relationships sometimes.
That you can leverage.
That you're leveraging.
Absolutely. All right, so we have a question from Kerry Gooding, and we want to thank you so very much for submitting your question. And that is, do you think that Caribbean people need a form of angel funding?
Well, the capital, access to capital is very important. And idea of angel funding or capital funding in whatever form is critical to a business success. I mean, in fact, one of the things that, that is critical to survive is your cash flow management. What I've found, though, is that even when it's available many times, the entrepreneurs don't have the paperwork to access it. I mean, because you can't just walk into a bank and you have an idea. You have to go in there and show them what you're doing, how you're going to do it. And I think that's where the gap is. The support in developing the financial plans, etc., is very important. So we talk about angel fund. We have seen in Jamaica.
Yes.
We have seen the Development Bank of Jamaica issue some stuff, and they've taken the risk from the banks.
Grants, of course.
But you still have to be able to show the plan, to show what your balance sheet looking like.
And it's funny you should say this. I had the opportunity of hosting a panel discussion, and funny enough, it was with angel investors. And one of the things I asked the lady was, what makes you sign on? Like, what makes you say, awesome? She says, hey, lots of entrepreneurs, especially in Jamaica, because we do, I think, naturally have an entrepreneurial spirit. What she said is that a lot of people come, and when you start to ask them for questions and data and research, everything is gut.
Yes.
They kind of have a feeling that this is what it's going to be. I have a feeling that that's going to be the projection. And she said, you can't do that. If you want to be taken seriously and you want people who are going to back you with their money to take you seriously, then you have to come with your paperwork.
And you have to know what you're talking about.
And you have to know what you're talking about.
I mean, so I think that is something which is where the mentorship can come into place. Things like jump should come in place for research. I mean, those are important things. So the funding is one part, but you have to be able to access those fundings. You have to have everything lined up properly.
And to know how to pitch and to know your product. So another question is, a lot of entrepreneurs start business with their life savings, which makes anxiety and fear great. How can we protect ourselves from the risk? And can we even?
Wow.
Ooh, that's a big question, and that's a good question. Richard, over to you.
Well, first of all, my preference is that if you take other people's money and fund your business, I mean, nothing wrong with debt, as long as the debt is working to deliver more than it's costing you to acquire debt. I think when you're an entrepreneur, you take on so much risk. The probability of failure is high. And that anxiety that's been asked about can be such a negative pressure on you. It doesn't give you you don't have no space to maneuver, to take a blow and recover. So I think that it's, it's again, I don't like the idea of taking life savings and so that you have nothing and the safety net is not there. You need that safety net.
And you spoke about being financially healthy. Like, you need to be financially healthy along your chain.
You have to be like that. So I mean, my preference is that you find access to the angel funding, the grant funding, the low interest loans through development banks. That would be my preference for an entrepreneur. Instead of going and putting everything out there. You could go from having a dream to being in poverty in no time.
Correct, correct. And it isn't to say that you shouldn't put some skin in the game. We've always heard, banks and even funders have said, it's good to see entrepreneurs who are willing to put some skin in the game. But what we do not want you to do is throw everything in there and then there's no cushion.
Yeah, I mean,
just in case.
No, skin in the game is important. It shows commitment to your project, but it can't be everything in the game. It's all or nothing. Especially if you're not, if you're young, etc., you can take that blow. Because you can do that. It depends on the stage you're in life. When somebody says they take the life saving, I'm thinking they're a little bit on their journey.
Getting ready for pension or retirement.
So I think that is where you have to
be smart about it. All right, we have another question. Can Mr. Pandohie recommend the profile of a good mentor? So what are some of the attributes? Or because mentor, honestly, the term mentorship, I didn't even know this term coming up. And I think just like you said, you really didn't have mentors. I went through college in Cuba, never heard of mentorship until I really came back to Jamaica and I heard you need to have a mentor. But many people have heard the term, but they don't really necessarily understand like what should they be looking for from a mentor.
So I'm going to recommend in theory because I've never used one.
Or the ones you've seen who have been good mentors.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, but I think first of all, you have to find somebody who's truly passionate about the business. Like, I mean, they're passionate about helping person and helping you. Okay, you want somebody to do that, as opposed to somebody who's giving a bit of your time. You want somebody who's passionate about helping people. You want somebody who has had the experience of failure, possibly. So, I mean, many times we look at what makes people successful, but you also have to find out, the people who recover from failure. I think they make the best mentors from what I've seen.
Right.
And they must have the capacity to help you to network properly. I mean, it's you want somebody who can help you to leverage yourself beyond that.
Right.
So those are things that come to me. If I had to pick a mentor, that's what I'd pick.
And if you had to pick a mentor, even right now, who would it be? Off the top of your head. If you could pick a mentor right now.
I mean...
To take you even further than where you've already been in the stratosphere, who would it be?
No, so I mean, my first significant position was actually as an operations manager at Jamaica Biscuit Company. The general manager there was Patrick Smith, and he a lot of freedom. I've stayed very close to him, and I definitely pick him as a mentor. And yeah, that's what comes to mind. I mean, it's
fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, but there are so many tremendous talents out there. I mean, I'd pick a woman as my mentor. I mean, it's I've seen, you look in the banking sector, you see the rise and
seen it.
And I mean,
50%.
I mean, it's tremendous. I mean, it's I've seen just tremendous talent out there, and sometimes the mentor you're looking for is somebody not similar to you, but different from you, to pull out your different aspects of it.
Correct. The only thing I was going to add, because I've seen this question before, and I've seen different types of persons answer this question, and they've said a lot of the times it isn't even one mentor. They said sometimes you find a mentor who is in the industry that you are trying to get into, because then they have the insights that is very specialized for that area. But they say you also need mentors who are removed, who are unbiased and can help you to look at your industry very differently, because they're not prejudiced by what they're already experiencing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good, but I mean, the idea of a mentor is typically, if I may say this, it's very socioeconomic driven. I mean, so people from a certain level will have people saying, let me mentor you, let me help you. The majority of Jamaicans, not going to have that opportunity. Because you're in an environment where everybody's moving and struggling.
Everybody on the go, everybody trying to do that thing for themselves.
So I mean, I don't want people to feel that, you have to have a mentor to be successful. A mentor will be a huge asset. But go out there and I mean, research. And there's, with e-commerce now on the platform, there's so much opportunity.
So much information.
To almost self-mentor if you had to. I don't even know if that's a word, but I mean, but I'm just saying, you don't limit yourself. Read widely, research, and I mean, and just look what somebody doing. Pick somebody that you admire, and look at how they operate and what they do.
And the breadcrumbs that they have left behind.
Right, I mean.
You mentioned Patrick Smith, and you said, you would choose a woman as a mentor, and you even use the banking industry as an example of how women are now, 50-50. Which of the 4 women would you say, all right, I would choose that mentor?
Well, I choose one that is not in the sector right now, Jackie Sharp.
All right.
I mean, and somebody that I admire, very instrumental in me coming back home. She said, you have to come help. Jamaica need Jamaicans to come back. I mean, she stepped away from a huge corporate job to go into farming or coffee business with her husband. I admire that greatly. Fantastic. So I'll pick her.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so from IG, from Go Daily, thank you for your question. What is the proper way to do research in your market? Is there a proper way? It
depends on the market. So when I was working in the global companies, let's take Jamaica. Jamaica was very difficult to sell projects on because we don't have data. We don't have Nielsen and those things. So when I was presenting on Damrep or Costa Rica or whatever, I could have pulled Nielsen data.
Stats.
Whatever.
Graphs.
And when I reached Jamaica, I thought, we're just not data driven. We don't have data. So if you're talking about Jamaica, I'm assuming this is a Jamaica question about proper way to do data research. You have to go on the ground. You have to develop yourself. I mean, it's recently we launched a product, and for me it was going too slow. I put 3 cases in the back of my van and I just drove. I saw some social media people and I asked, where are you? DM them. Yeah, I'm in Montego, whatever. Just go deliver the thing to them. Ask them their opinion, ask them their feedback. And so I go on the ground and I want to know. I want to speak to the people. I mean, I'd stand up in a supermarket and shop for hours. I mean, I think some women think I was stalking them. I was really just researching.
I hope you weren't stalking people while they were going through their aisle, Richard.
I just look in their trolley and like, just start a conversation. How come, I mean, what you got to, and you learn.
Right.
You learn. And I mean, also what I do is that I look for similar markets where I am, but markets that are more developed with data. So I'd pick, so like right now, I mean, every night I'd go and I'd look on supply chain or a company, I'd pick a country, Singapore, whatever. And I'm researching what's happening there and what trend is happening there. Because the trend that's happening there is likely to happen here also.
Correct.
So I'm actually using them as a proxy for what's happening there and to get that sense of what risk you face, what opportunities you face, how are people reacting to
So it's almost like a blended approach as well. So if you can find the data, or if you can look again for the digital breadcrumbs that other companies leave,
or other countries,
by all means, but then it does not take away from you developing your own surveys, developing your own assessments and hitting the ground.
Right, because you have nuances in your own market that that you're going to have to factor into your decision making.
About our market in
right.
particular.
I mean, it's and by the way, for me, I see the Caribbean as our market, our domestic market. I've never considered Jamaica as our. I see the CARICOM as my domestic market, but it's again. I mean, we have to do as much as possible to find information because there are. A lot of times you think you're innovating, but you're really not innovating. You just what you need to access what has happened somewhere else and adapt it quickly to your market. You want to be first mover in your market.
Correct.
But you're not first mover globally. It's highly unlikely to be first mover globally.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And nothing wrong with that. It's speed. It's first mover here. I mean, you want to see it, adapt it, and move it quickly. Okay. I mean, so that's
sounds like a plan. So Kerry Gooding in Barbados, she says, what areas do you think have the most gaps and opportunities now? Lots of people look to coding and tech. Of course, it's a big booming industry. What areas do you think are underexplored?
Boy, Kerry, I stress me, but
Big up to the Bayesians.
well, first of all, what the pandemic has shown us, the pandemic has flipped around how we value who and what we value in our society.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's suddenly you recognize that the people you took for granted, the activities you took for granted, are suddenly so essential to your life and what you need to do. So I think there are huge opportunities. So on what I call the things like just service within homes, because so many more people are staying at home. So if you look at sales, if you look at courts or Asher Furniture, sales have gone up. More people are at home. Cement companies, sales have gone up. More people doing renovation and construction. So when you look at that, you're seeing opportunities where people, because they're nesting now, a lot more now, it's creating opportunities in that space. Because you have to bring the service to them or whatever it is. So I think there are huge opportunities there.
And it's interesting that you even say that it's Animal Adoption Week. I was at the Jamaica Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, funny enough. And I was speaking to Pam Lawson, who is the managing director, and I asked her, how are things going? And she said, she saw a boom. She saw an increase in the amount of persons who are bringing their animals to visit the veterinarian and to adopt. And I'm saying, I don't get it. Why? And she said, well, people are now at home. They're now looking at it. They're now seeing the issues that their animals are having, which is why they're now taking them to the vet. And they said that there are other persons who are now working from home, singles, who don't have a cat, don't have a dog, and no, they just want a companion.
Exactly.
And so here it is, there were these areas and sectors that nobody even spoke about really, that are seeing growth because of what's happening with human social behavior.
And the other question to that, I mean, food. I mean, people are eating healthier now. With the pandemic, I mean, a big part of fighting it is your health.
Right.
So we're seeing a lot more demand when I visit companies, smaller companies, for healthier products.
Yeah.
They want the ginger tea, or they want the this, or they want the that, they want the gluten-free product. So there's a huge demand, and food is going to be a big part. I mean, food is going to be a big, big part of our growth going forward, because there's supply chain disruption everywhere.
Correct.
So I think there are just big opportunities, and I think that we just need to reset, because what we thought were the hot items pre-COVID disappeared overnight, and people have gone back to basic in many ways, back to the things that are more human, companionship, eating, I mean, so those are things I think have created significant what I consider low barrier to entry opportunities.
Good, and we just have to be very mindful, and we always have to be looking, and we have to be listening as well, and cutting through the noise, as you say you're very good at doing. Our very last question from social media comes from Tafar Simpson, and he says, what tip would you give to manage mental fatigue, especially in these challenging times? You still have to make your target, you still have to perform, you still have to get your results, and yet still there's a lot of added pressure that's happening just because, and this is just a pandemic, but it could be really anything, any type of crisis. How do you, or what tip or advice would you give to manage?
In fact, we had mental health week a couple of weeks
Correct.
ago. I mean, people are tired. I'm mentally tired. I mean, I just miss traveling. But what I try to do for me is just try to take frequent breaks. And I try to step away from the work environment. I'm reading a novel, I read a novel frequently, reading novels frequently, and just try to reset, I mean, it's mental fatigue also comes from sometimes just you're wondering so much, what's going to happen? How am I going to, if you're an entrepreneur, how am I going to survive? Will my business survive? What's going to happen tomorrow? And then you have to separate what am I in control and what am I not in control of. And what you have to is make sure what you're in control of you do really well. But you have to maintain yourself in a healthy state is a big part of your responsibility as an entrepreneur, especially an entrepreneur.
That's a big speech.
Because you can't, if something happened to you,
can't pour
your
from
business has suffered.
You cannot pour from
So when you ask me, the thing that I'm looking for is, what should I be doing? The health is not a huge part of it. Because without health, you have nothing. You can't execute. So an entrepreneur, you can't feel like you get mentally fatigued. Stop, reset. Right, that's different from millennials who feel like they have to be in the mood for everything, right?
Right.
I mean, that's a different thing.
Because sometimes you are going to have to push through, but it is not driving yourself into the ground where you are literally of no use to yourself, to your business, or to the persons you might manage.
A big company with 1,000 people, 10 people outnumbered, with an entrepreneur with 2, 3 of you in the business or 5, one of you out is a significant part of your thing. So you have to make sure you're looking about your welfare, your state of mind.
And your service to others.
Absolutely.
My last question, I know my time is running out and you've been answering the questions so well, and we thank everyone who submitted their questions. Lastly, in this current climate, what are some critical business decisions that businesses need to make now to ensure business continuity? You were just speaking about health, for example, ensuring that you are taking care of your health. Anything else that they should be?
I want to go back to cash flow. It's critical that you manage your cash flow properly. You have to be on top of your cash flow, and that's a clear weakness. The other thing we speak about diversification. And I like the idea of diversification, what I call synergistic diversification. I'll make up some big words. Meaning that you use your current resources to create a new earning stream or whatever. I mean, you look to new markets.
Right.
That diversification is critical to managing your risk and to growing your business. And I think that we need to make sure you expand and forget about what it was that you thought your world was. E-commerce has opened up, has made geographical boundaries no longer an issue. We need to make sure that
markets have opened.
Markets have opened.
And are now accessible.
Very much so. More people are at home online. The social media has become the window to the world. Utilize those. Move fast on those. And that's very important. And at the same time, it's, as I helped before, that the cash management, using the innovation and going out there. Those are things that I think could pivot. And I mean, at the end of the day also, it's just having the confidence and the belief that you're going to get through this. I think self-confidence, positivity is
has a lot to do with it.
It has to be. I mean, you can't surround yourself with negativity. Move the negative people out of your space. Because positivity is important. We're going to get through this. Your business will survive, but you have to put in the work. So those are things that I would say, in a nutshell, are the things that I would say business have to do now.
Thank you. Richard, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you to everyone. I think this was a fantastic session. And of course, we welcome you to give us your feedback. Just make sure you use the hashtag so that we can see you, we can repost, reshare, and retweet. This has been fantastic, and thank you so very much. It's a wrap. Thank you to everyone tuning in. It has been an honor just to sit down here and to be a part of the Digicel Masterclass series. So in case you're wondering, this will happen every single Thursday at 6 p.m. right here. Register, digicelbusiness.com. Share the link, and of course, tell your friends, your family, your co-workers, and your inner circles, because I think everyone can benefit from the conversation. And you do not want to miss next week or the one after that, because we have some women coming into the building. We will have Aileen Corrigan, Chief Digicel Officer at Digicel, who will provide some keen perspective of what it means to go digital and how to leverage the digital space. Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure serving you as the MC, and this was the first episode of Digicel Masterclass. Thank you so very much, and be safe. Thanks again, Richard.
Thanks for having me.
I would shake your hand, but let's just do that instead.
You're awesome.
Pleasure. No, great answers. Great answers. It's almost like you came prepped to answer all of that.
But they were easy.
You eat this for...
No, they weren't, but it's just relevant because I'm doing it every day.
I know.
I mean it, and because I probably spend 60% of my time now just working with small business.
Wow.
I mean, and it's hard. Like I try to do 4 companies a week. That's